We're examining the strengths and weaknesses of the AFC and discussing where the Buffalo Bills slot today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Friday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, or if you're joining us on the YouTube channel, your first watch every day. Well, as we all know, the AFC is loaded with good football teams. And on today's podcast, I want to really examine what this conference has and the challenges that are in the way of the Bills winning this conference. And so I've went through and I've tiered the conference into 4 different tiers. I have the bucket of teams that I call the 11-plus win teams. I think this is the cream of the crop. These are the teams that I think have a really good chance of representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. And it's a pretty deep list of teams. In fact, I have the most teams in this bucket of any other bucket, which I think right off the bat, right there, that tells you about how good this conference is. My next tier of teams are the teams that I think can challenge for double-digit wins, teams that I think are like 8, 9, 10 win teams. Like if they achieve everything they can, they'll get to 10 wins. I have a tier of teams that are hovering around 500. These are the teams that I think win 7 or 8 games, maybe 9 games, something like that. And then the bottom tier of the AFC, these are the teams that would shock me if they have a winning record or come close to having a winning record. So we'll start with the top. Let's start with the 11-plus win teams. And I've got 6 teams in this bucket, 6. Now, there's only 7 playoff spots. So there's room for these 6 plus 1 more. I have the Kansas City Chiefs. These are in no particular order, so don't get hung up on the order. I'm not a big list guy. I'm a tier guy. I really don't enjoy the splitting hairs conversations of who's the best at something, and you have several really close teams. Like, I'm not into that. These are the top tier. Kansas City Chiefs, Denver Broncos, LA Chargers, Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens. These are the teams that I think are the cream of the crop in the AFC, the 11-plus win teams. Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, Bills, Bengals, and Ravens. So I want to talk about each of these teams quickly and talk about, why I think they're so good, but then, what could get in the way of them achieving all the success that they possibly can this year. So with the Kansas City Chiefs, the reason they're in this bucket is because of their quarterback and their coaching staff. Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, Steve Spagnuolo. I mean, it's a phenomenal coaching staff, and they have arguably the best player in the NFL in Pat Mahomes. They got a really good offensive line, several young players that should be even better this year. They've got some dudes on defense, right? Chris Jones, Juan Thornhill, young players, right, that they just drafted, and Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis, and Nick Bolton looks like he's a good player. So they got some young talent on that defensive side of the football, excuse me. And obviously they've proven that they are this type of team, right? They've hosted the AFC Championship game like 3 or 4 years in a row. So I know that there's some things going on here, right? They don't have Tyreek Hill anymore, and I'm really interested in seeing how that affects their offense. I think that they do need a lot of young players and new pieces on defense to step up, right? Those are going to be things that they'll have to answer as a team. But I think they get the benefit of the doubt. I'm not expecting them to be like this dominant team that wins every single game. I think they're going to win a lot of their games. They're going to be a tough team, but they're not without some questions, given how this offense is going to look without Tyreek Hill, how this defense is going to look with a lot of young pieces, right? Tyrann Mathieu, he's not there anymore. So we'll see how it all comes together. Denver Broncos really like the makeup of this football team now with Russ Wilson at quarterback. They've had weapons on offense. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Javonte Williams at running back, Tim Patrick at receiver, Albert Okwuegbunam at tight end. They got a good young offensive line. And now they have a quarterback that can really maximize these young assets on the offensive side of the football. And that was their big question, right? I always thought they were a quarterback away. Defensively, this was one of the best teams in the league last year. They brought in Randy Gregory to give them an answer at pass rusher. Got some young talent that's developing on the defensive side of the football, a really good safety in Justin Simmons. So Denver, to me, has all the ingredients. Now, the challenge for them is maintaining where they've been on defense with a new situation, right? Vic Fangio's no longer the head coach here. They have a new head coach in Nathaniel Hackett, and there's always a bit of a wild card dynamic that exists when there's a new head coach. So it's all got to come together. But from a talent perspective, and they got the quarterback now, this team's really good. We've got the LA Chargers in this bucket. They got a dude at quarterback. Justin Herbert's unbelievable. I mean, I think he's one of the best 5 quarterbacks in the game right now. He's phenomenal. And they've done a great job of building up the offensive line. They did so last year, and now they added Zion Johnson to the mix. I've loved what they have at running back now with Austin Eckler and Isaiah Spiller to complement him. Good receivers, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, a couple of young players that they've drafted recently like a Josh Palmer. And defensively, they added Khalil Mack. And they answered their biggest question. They needed defensive tackle help. They couldn't stop the run last year, and they went out and got Sebastian Joseph Day, who's a really good nose tackle, and Khalil Mack. This team, they've added to their secondary a little bit. Some young players that will be better. Brandon Staley, very bright defensive mind. Their biggest question to me is that linebacker. And if that's your biggest question, you're in pretty good shape as a team, especially for the style of football that Brandon Staley plays on defense. It's not really predicated on having an elite couple of linebackers. So I like what the Chargers have, and they've got a dude at quarterback in Justin Herbert. Now, they got to learn how to win. I think that's kind of an underrated component of the Chargers. They got to learn how to win football games. That's what kept them out last year. Obviously, stopping the run was a problem for them, but I think they have to learn how to win. But I think they've got what it takes to win a lot of football games this year. Got the Buffalo Bills in this bucket. I mean, I talk about the Bills every day on this podcast. You know what I think about them. Josh Allen, Steph Diggs, very potent offense. I think they'll be a top 3 offense again this year. Now, they got to prove that, right? They've got new pieces on offense, more so than they've had in recent years. New coaches in a lot of places, new coordinator on offense. So all that's got to come together. And defensively, this team should be really good. You added Von Miller. You added a bunch of defensive tackles. You added a CB2, a really dynamic one in Kyer Elam. I mean, my expectations are really high for the Buffalo Bills. And I know I'm not going to spend a lot of time with the Bills. I don't need to, right? This is Locked On Bills. Talk about them every day. But their Bills are firmly in this 11-plus win teams bucket. And I expect them to be in contention to be the number 1 seed. We've got the defending AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals in this bucket. I mean, they've got a lot of good things happening for this team. Joe Burrow is an exciting quarterback. He's got weapons in Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Joe Mixon's a good running back. They've improved their offensive line. That was a big problem for them last year. Well, they went out and signed Ted Karras and Alex Kappa and Lyle Collins to fix this offensive line. And defensively, they've been doing a nice job in recent years of really drafting and adding talent to the mix, signing some good free agents. Trey Hendrickson, Some nice pieces coming together here. Love the addition of Daxton Hill in the draft. I think Cincinnati's going to be a really good football team. Now, the question for them is, did they overachieve a bit last year? I think absolutely. I think they caught lightning in a bottle and had some luck for sure. I don't think Joe Burrow played his best football in the playoffs. I think he'll be better for that. But I think this team can't walk into this season assuming, hey, we're the reigning AFC champions, and, because of that, we're going to win 10 or 11 games. I think this team has to embrace a mindset, and the leadership of this team is going to be challenged in very unique ways this year. Certainly a good team that has a chance to win that division and, go deep into the postseason. Then there's the Baltimore Ravens. This team is dangerous. Obviously they didn't have a great year last year, but that's because of injuries. They had tons of injuries. It was ridiculous. So not only are they going to be a better football team because the injured players are coming back, like Marcus Peters, and Lamar Jackson, and J.K. Dobbins, and Ronnie Stanley, but they added a ton of great players in the draft. They signed Marcus Williams to play free safety, who's one of the best deep ball defenders in the league. Calais Campbell's back. Young players that they've drafted recently like Odafe Owe and Rashad Bateman. They're coming in and improving, year over year, considering it's year 2 for them. They should be a big jump for those players. Kyle Hamilton in the draft. Tyler Linderbaum in the draft. I mean, come on. This team's loaded. Absolutely loaded. And I think they're going to be right there with the Bengals at the top of that AFC North. And a tough opponent, right? You got to play a different style of football against Baltimore. And Lamar Jackson wants that contract. So I'm expecting a big year from him. So the top of the AFC to me, in no particular order, Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, Bills, Bengals, Ravens. That's the class of the AFC. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. It's BetOnline, and it's where the game starts. The next bucket that I want to dig into is the can challenge for double-digit wins bucket. I think one or two of these teams might be playoff teams, but I think these are football teams that I expect to win 8, 9, 10 games, something in that range. Have the Las Vegas Raiders in this bucket, a playoff team from last year. Derek Carr, they've got Devontae Adams now, Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs. Some good pieces on the offensive line, but I think that's probably my biggest question on offense. Like, the interior of that O-line, not great. I think they need to get better production there. Now, I love Josh McDaniels and his offense coming in and what it could mean for the run game and Josh Jacobs, and they've got a couple of other good backs and Kenyon Drake and Zamir White. So I think Hunter Renfrow in the slot, like, the pieces are in place for this offense to really mesh well with Josh McDaniels and what he likes to do. But I think their interior O-line play is going to define that offense. Now on defense, they've got some really nice pieces as well, especially at edge rusher with Chandler Jones and Max Crosby. But I think it's fair to call into question the interior of that defensive line, call into question the linebackers a little bit. I think they have some holes in the secondary. So to me, what type of team are they on defense, and can that interior offensive line hold up? I think they'll be a good team, but those are some pretty notable questions that has me thinking, all right, are the Raiders a 10-11 win team, or are they kind of a team that is probably going to have a winning record, but they're going to need some things to go right for them to make the playoffs? Next up is the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, the big wild card with Cleveland is Deshaun Watson, right? We know what this guy can be, but is he suspended? How long? Questions are there, right? Jacoby Brissett, the backup quarterback. Are you really going to win a lot of games with that guy as your quarterback? Probably not. The offensive line has been the strength of this team. They don't have J.C. Treader anymore at center. Now, the rest of it's intact, but Treader's been an important player for them. Their passing game just kind of has to come together. A lot of new pieces, right? New quarterback. They brought in Amari Cooper at receiver. What does the rest of this receiving core look like? Austin Hooper's no longer there at tight end. I think that's okay because they have Harrison Bryant and David Njoku. But we're talking about a lot of new pieces together in this passing game. And you might not even have your quarterback for the first half of the year. And so now you need this guy to come in mid-season with no real time on task with these receivers and weapons or in this system. It's kind of a tough ask. Defensively, I like what this team has in a lot of spots. Obviously, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, pretty good secondary overall, a lot of depth, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. But I think their defensive line leaves a little something to be desired. What kind of depth do they have there? So there's enough questions here. I think this team can challenge for double-digit wins if it all comes together. But like the spectrum of possibilities for Cleveland this year it's a pretty broad range to me. I can see them winning 6 or 7 games. I can see them winning 9 or 10 games. Moving on to the Indianapolis Colts. Now, this team, I like this team. Good offensive line, veteran quarterback in Matt Ryan. We know what Jonathan Taylor is at running back. Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce now at wide receiver. I still don't think they have a ton of depth at receiver. But, this team's going to run the football really well, and they have a veteran quarterback in Matt Ryan that can keep things on schedule and play smart. Make a few throws every game. I like what they have on offense. I still think their script is a little bit limited. If you can get a lead on Indianapolis, that's going to be tough for them. But if they're playing the way that they can, they're going to be a tough football team. Defensively, love what they have. I think they're loaded at every level of this defense. Their safety situation is going to be really good with Kari Willis and Julian Blackman coming back. Stefon Gilmore's there at corner. Darius Leonard, Grover Stewart, DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye in year 2. I think this team's going to be just a rock-solid team that's tough to beat. Now, I think that they have a narrow script that they need to subscribe to, but all in all, a good football team. I think they probably win that division because I don't have the Titans in this bucket. I have them in the next bucket. To me, this is the Colts division to lose. And then also have the Miami Dolphins in this can challenge for double-digit wins bucket. Defensively, this team is going to be the same defensive coaching staff with I know they don't have Brian Flores, but Josh Boyer's still there running this defense. And they didn't really lose anything personnel-wise. They added Melvin Ingram. They added Channing Tindall to the linebacker core. Secondary's back in place. Javon Holland and Jalen Phillips had great rookie seasons. Now they're entering year 2. I think this team has a lot going for them on the defensive side of the football. Offensively, with Mike McDaniel coming in, it's really going to simplify things for Tua. Well, not that things weren't too simplified, but I think that style of offense combined with having Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, Cedric Wilson, an improved running back situation, a better offensive line with Connor Williams and Terron Armstead, Dolphins got a lot going for them. Now, the X factor is obviously Tua. What can you expect from him? Can he be an effective game manager? Can he make a few throws if he has to late in games to win? Mike McDaniel, kind of a wild card as a head coach. Relatively inexperienced. Different type of personality. It's an X factor, right? How do those things come together? But outside of that quarterback, you got to love what Miami's put together. It's a good football team. Now, their questions are in the biggest places, but I think it's fair to say that Tua has not been supported well. He hasn't had an offensive line. He hasn't had meaningful receivers. The offensive infrastructure with Chan Gailey and whatever the hell they had going on last year at coordinator was not great. And so I think this is a good stage for Tua to play his best football. Now, what is Tua's best football? I'm not sure. No, I don't think anybody knows the answer to that. But it's fair to think that he can step in and play his best ball and that he's got everything that he needs to be successful, a defense that's not going to allow a lot of points, to put stress on the offense, to score a bunch. He's got the weapons. He's got the O-line. He's got the running back depth. He's got the system that should allow him to play his best ball. Now we'll see how he impacts this team, if he limits it or if he can just play at a steady level to help them win games. And that's all the 49ers needed from Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo has those moments where he loses you football games, but for the most part, it's that baseline level of play that he offers to go with this script and this system around him that allows him to be successful. So we'll see with Miami. They've won 19 games over the last 2 years. They won 9 games last year, 10 the year before. It's not like they're this terrible football team. And I think that they have the best roster they've had in a long time. So I think the Miami Dolphins can challenge for double-digit wins. I think they win 9 or 10 games. Will that get you to the playoffs in this AFC? Man, could you imagine? The Dolphins go 10-6, 9-8, miss the playoffs with 7 seeds, and then they have a 9 or 10 win season again and don't get in. Whew. So that's the can challenge for double-digit win bucket. The Raiders, Browns, Colts, and Dolphins. Need to tell you guys about Built Bar, and as you know, I want to focus on the puffs, specifically the birthday cake puffs. They just launched these things, and they are absolutely delicious. They're white chocolate, the marshmallow. It's phenomenal. Sprinkles on these things. They taste so good. They're healthy for you. 16 grams of protein, low calorie, low sugar. They're phenomenal. They taste great. And like I've said, I was worried about the puffs. I didn't think I was going to like them because I'm not a marshmallow guy. And that's what a puff is. It's a chocolate-covered marshmallow protein bar. But they are so good. In fact, I like them more than the regular Built Bars. And I love the regular Built Bars. But I find myself ordering more puffs than regular Built Bars in recent days. So try them out. They got a lot of great flavors of puffs. They just released the brownie batter. They have the birthday cake, churro, banana cream, so many great flavors. You want to try them, check out Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. The last two buckets that I want to get into, or tiers that I want to get into, are the hovering around 500 teams and then the bottom tier of the conference. The hovering around 500 teams, I have the New England Patriots, the Tennessee Titans, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. As for the Patriots, I've talked a lot about this team. I feel like they're getting worse. They lost their best player on offense in Shaq Mason. They lost their best player in defense in J.C. Jackson. Had a questionable draft. And what did they really do in the offseason to help their team? They signed Jabril Peppers. I mean, how many safeties does this team need? Are they going to play 4? They traded for Devontae Parker. Has Devontae Parker been consistent at any point in his career? Does he offer something new to this offense? I just don't see it with this team. I don't see it with this roster. They have questions in the defensive front 7. Their corners are going to be like Malcolm Butler and who? Jalen Mills? Is there an offensive weapon that scares you on this team? Their best weapon on offense is probably Hunter Henry. Do they have the talent around Mac Jones to take advantage of his best qualities as a quarterback, which is accuracy and quick processing? I don't think they have a bunch of guys that can separate. Now, they have Bill Belichick, and he coached that team in 2020 to like a 7-9 record, and I thought that was unbelievable because I thought that team was terrible. So I think Belichick will coach them to a respectable level. But I don't think this roster's in good shape at all, and I think they have a very limited young quarterback that has not been really supported. Their offensive coaching situation is goofy at best. I think of them as a team that'll win 7, 8, 9 games. 7 or 8 most likely. Looking at the Tennessee Titans. This team's tricky because they were the number 1 seed last year. But I get nervous about Ryan Tannehill. I get nervous about the right side of their offensive line. I mean, the receiving core is extremely funky right now. No A.J. Brown, Treylon Burks, and Robert Woods. Derrick Henry's back, but I mean, they were the number 1 seed without Derrick Henry. How much does he move the needle? Those other running backs were just fine. Defensively, I like a lot of what they have, but they have some questions at corner. How good are those linebackers? Have Harold Landry, Bud Dupree, Jeffrey Simmons up front. That's pretty good, but what else is there? I know Danico Autry's a good player. He's worth mentioning. But with this Titans team, I just wonder if they've maxed out. I think they've went as far as Ryan Tannehill can take them. 3 straight playoff losses. They went AFC Championship 3 years ago. I think divisional round 2 years ago, and then last year the wild card round. Or, well, I know it was divisional because they had the bye. So their first playoff game they lost. I don't know about this team. I think they can be respectable. I think they can win 8 or 9 games, but I'm not fully convinced that this is a 10-11 win team. I don't think, I just feel like they're max with Ryan Tannehill. And I don't think that answer is going to happen this year. Like, I think Malik Willis, who they drafted in the 3rd round, could be a really good player for them. I like his ceiling. He's a 3rd round pick, and he's going to be a rookie, and there's a lot for him to adjust to at the NFL level. So we'll see what Ryan Tannehill is able to pull off this year, but I think his supporting cast on offense is as bad as it's ever been with him in that team. And some question marks on defense. I think they'll be an average team. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see on this team. Now, they've got Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. They drafted Kenny Pickett in the 1st round. Quarterback play wasn't their strength last year. Ben Roethlisberger was terrible. So it's not like this team hasn't done well with bad quarterback play, because they got to the playoffs last year with Ben Roethlisberger somehow. Like, I think that Mitch Trubisky is a better player right now than Ben Roethlisberger was last year. Got some young offensive linemen that should be better in year 2. Najee Harris, year 2 for him. Pat Freiermuth, the tight end, year 2. Got Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, George Pickens. They drafted Calvin Austin. They've got some stuff on offense. I'm interested to see how that scheme evolves, right? With Matt Canada, kind of a pop gun offense that's played within like a very short box. Can they stretch the field a little bit more? Can they be more explosive? Defensively, I think they'll be pretty good. I like their options up front with Hayward and Tuitt and TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. I think there's some questions at linebacker. They have 2 names in Miles Jack and Devin Bush. Neither player played well last year. And they have Minkah Fitzpatrick at safety, but like, I have a lot of questions about their secondary overall. No Joe Hayden anymore. Yeah, what's going to happen at corner here? Levi Wallace and Justin Lane and Cam Sutton. I just feel like there's some holes there. Now, Mike Tomlin's a great football coach. He's never had a losing record ever. So he gets the benefit of the doubt there, but there's some challenges with this team. And I think they have some holes. Lastly, we have the AFC bottom tier. Real quick, the hovering around 500 tier, Patriots, Titans, Steelers. In the bottom tier, it's the Jets, Jaguars, and Texans. 3 teams that just have a ways to go here. Now, talent-wise, I really like what the Jets and Jaguars have been able to get done this offseason. I have some questions about Jacksonville and some of those contracts, right? Brandon Scherf, a good player, but he's aging and injured. Christian Kirk is not worth the contract they gave him. There's some overpays for sure. Zay Jones, like, what the hell was that deal? So some questionable contracts, but collectively their team got better and they had a ton of cap space. I like Doug Peterson as their head coach. I mean, from a talent perspective, this roster's gotten a lot better. But a lot of new pieces, young quarterback and Trevor Lawrence, just a lot to prove there. So I don't think that they're like a 2 or a 3 win team. I think they can win 5, 6 games, maybe 7, but still a bottom tier AFC team. The Jets, Another team that got better this offseason, added to the O-line with Laken Tomlinson. Now they're counting on those tackles to work out with Mekhi Becton and George Fant. We'll see how that goes. Added Garrett Wilson to go with Corey Davis and Elijah Moore. Braxton Berrios at receiver. Got deeper at running back with Breece Hall. How does Zach Wilson respond, right? I don't think he had a good rookie season. And having a bad rookie season doesn't mean your career's over, but he's got a lot to prove. And it's not just that he has a lot to prove on the field. Like I don't think he adjusted well from Utah. And I don't think that he did a good job of playing within the structure of the offense. And so he's got to kind of has to reinvent himself a little bit as a player. And that's a tough thing to do. Defensively, the Jets had the worst defense they've ever put on the field last year. Carl Lawson's back. That should be helpful. Added Jermaine Johnson. Linebackers to me are shaky. They added to the secondary, but it's got to all come together. So I think the Jets are a better football team, but are they really ready to be viewed as a playoff contender? I don't think so. I think they're probably a 5-6 win team. And then there's the Houston Texans. And I know that they signed Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison recently, but you just look at this roster. It's not good. And it wasn't good last year. Last year, we talked about the Houston Texans roster looking like an expansion team. I'm not sure it looks much different this year. It's a little better, but still probably the easiest out in the AFC. I think this team wins 4 or 5 games, maybe 6. And obviously Davis Mills at quarterback. He might have been the second best rookie quarterback last year of any of the players, but what can we expect from him? I mean, more time on task should be helpful, right? He should be more comfortable, but what has he got around him? It's a tough situation for him. And Lovie Smith, I'm happy for him that he got another chance to be a head coach, but he doesn't necessarily have a great resume. So we'll see. But I think the clear bottom tier of this conference is the Jets, Jaguars, and Texans. All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed that. Look through the AFC, talking about the tiers and where the Bills slot and what this conference overall has to offer. A lot of really good football teams. A lot of good football teams aren't going to make the playoffs. I'll tell you that. Bills should be fine, though, right? The Bills, go take care of your business. The Bills, we know what they're capable of. All right, like I said yesterday, I cannot wait for next week. Monday and Tuesday is going to be phenomenal. Don't miss it. That's what I'll say. I'm looking forward to everyone consuming early next week and providing feedback and really building some fun stuff off of what happens on Monday and Tuesday. So don't miss anything. Make sure you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Enjoy your weekend, and I look forward to catching up with you again on Monday.